Today we're going to start talking about Thurgood Marshall. He was very influential during the Civil Rights Movement, although he was not known very well. He did not start any riots, and he did not give any influential speeches like Martin Luther King did. But he was still just as influential in the freedom of the blacks during this time period. He was extremely important because he was a lawyer, and one of the best lawyers around. Instead of giving speeches and creating riots, he argued in court cases, which in the end helped just as much as any riots or speeches could. Let's start back to when he was young. What influenced him to become a lawyer, and what got him to where he is now? He grew up in a town called Baltimore, Maryland. This was where he was born, and this is where he grew up and spent most of his days. He went to very good schooling and had a great education, which helped him go to law school later in the end. This sort of education for blacks in this time period was very rare, so he was very lucky to get this opportunity, which bettered the nation in the end. As he was growing up, he had a strict Christian religion. This helped him realize that what was happening to blacks wasn't fair. This also helped him realize that it had to stop. From youth, he realized that the best way he could help his nation was becoming a lawyer. He worked very hard in school just so that he could get a good enough education to get into a good enough college so that he could become a lawyer. He was determined to get liberty for the blacks, and this motivated him to do really good in school so that he could become a great lawyer. Because of his large education and his unstopping determination, he was very influential and helpful during the Civil Rights Movement. The Jim Crow laws were a set of laws that completely discriminated against all blacks. From colored waiting rooms to colored bathrooms to colored water fountains, it separated the entire community between blacks and whites. Thurgood Marshall saw that these were not fair and was one of the biggest factors in destroying the Jim Crow laws. Without him, the Jim Crow laws might never have been abolished. Within his lifetime, Thurgood argued a total of 32 cases in front of the Supreme Court, which is more than anyone else in history. This shows that he was very influential during the Civil Rights period. Not only did he argue 32, but he won 29 out of 32 cases, which is extremely good. That is a 91% win rate, which is very high considering how many cases he argued. All of Thurgood's cases were racial injustice cases, which means he only fought against racial injustice, which means he was fighting during the Civil Rights Movement for blacks' freedom. One of his most famous cases was the Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka case, where they were fighting for equality for public schools, where blacks and whites could go to the same school so that blacks could get a better education. And the outcome was that the segregation of public schools was a violation of the 14th Amendment, so it was unconstitutional. Because of Thurgood Marshall's outstanding success and hard work, President Lyndon B. Johnson appointed Marshall to Solicitor General, which was a racial first, and then 2 years later to the Supreme Court, saying it was the right thing to do, the right time to do it, and the right man in the right place. And just in case you were wondering, the Solicitor General is the official position for the person who argues court cases in front of the Supreme Court. Overall, Thurgood's success put him in the books. He was the first African American justice, and he was the first African American Solicitor General. Overall, it is very easy to see how Thurgood Marshall contributed to the Civil Rights Movement, from the Jim Crow laws to the Brown versus Board of Education. Thurgood helped the blacks gain their freedom through many ways.